Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Choose to Be podcast. You are with Alana Gordon today. Amy Woolsey and I are in full summer mode. And so you're just getting episodes with each of us individually so often. And soon we will be back together. But in the meantime, I am so excited to be with you today. So today's episode is brought to you by the Unmasked Intensive. The Unmasked Intensive, oh, I want to pull up this full name because I want to say it's right. It's Unmasked from Facade to Freedom, a men's intensive to step into integrity and out of shame. So, Unmasked is bringing us today's episode. And I will just say the Unmasked Intensive is for men who are really ready to just start taking off the mask and being who they are and living in authenticity. So, it's about coming out of deceit, coming out of lying, facing the shame, coming out of the shadows and having that true healing. So, we have that with Choose Recovery Services coming up in September. You can go to chooserecoveryservices.com. All right. So today we are talking about why do I get so emotionally dysregulated after betrayal and how so often we can feel like something is wrong with us. Like, do you find yourself crying at the littlest things? Do you find yourself blowing a gasket of something that where before might have been like, yes, been annoying, but now it feels like it's throwing you over the top? Or you find yourself feeling just emotionally out of control. Well, first of all, I will say it can feel like we're very broken or something's wrong with us, but this is not that you are broken or something is wrong with you. This is a really normal, common response to betrayal. So we're going to unpack some of the science behind that and why this happens and what it actually means and really how we can heal from it. I'll be the first to tell you, back when I went through my betrayal, I felt like I went from a very normal, sane, calm woman to feeling out of control. I remember there were so many times that I walked away from things feeling embarrassed of like, that wasn't me. Why did I respond that way? And not feeling like I could control it, feeling like these other parts of me were just taking over. And I will say that's not where I am today. And with healing, it absolutely is possible. But your brain and your body are actually responding exactly as they are as a response to betrayal. So, first of all, we want to look at betrayal as trauma. So this is why I love APSATs and the APSATs model so much is because it looks at betrayal through the lens of trauma and healing trauma. So when betrayal happens, whether it's infidelity, lies, or broken trust, your body and brain processes it as trauma. And trauma isn't just a really bad event. It's anything that overwhelms your nervous system and its ability to cope. I'm going to say that one more time. Trauma isn't just some really bad event. It's anything that overwhelms your nervous system's ability to cope. So here's what happens. Your brain interprets betrayal as an attachment injury and a threat to its survival because safety in relationships is wired, like hardwired internally into us as humans. And so this threat to survival activates the amygdala, and this is the brain's alarm system, and it goes on high alert. It starts scanning for danger everywhere. And you've probably felt this, you've probably experienced this, that you used to be able to go out in public and just enjoy a dinner, right? Now you find yourself noticing, what is the hostess like? What is the waitress like? Like, who's walking in the restaurant? Who's walking by me? What are the other people? Like, you find yourself, what is my partner's eyes doing? You find yourself scanning everything because that threat to survival has been activated. The amygdala is running on high alert and it's looking for wherever there is potential danger. And at the same time, your brain's prefrontal cortex, that rational thinking part of your brain, goes offline. Because when we go into that fight, flight, or freeze, that part of our brain, it sends all of the energy and focus into that part of the brain. So that nice logical thinking brain literally gets shut down to send all the energy over to the survival And so where before you may have felt like you could think rationally, clearly, make decisions, even remember things, all of that has significantly diminished capacity because that prefrontal cortex has shut down to put all the energy into the fight, flight, or freeze. And on top of this, right, we have the threat to survival, we have the amygdala activation, we have the prefrontal cortex shutting down. Your body also gets flooded with the stress hormones. So you're getting all of that adrenaline and that cortisol. And while your body is created in a way that it can handle that, it's not created for long term flooding of these chemicals. And so when we go into this fight, flight, or freeze, and we are constantly still in this environment and often still in this relationship, those hormones of cortisol and adrenaline are constantly pumping through your body. So now we have a trauma response, fight, flight, or freeze, and we're having all of those extra chemicals in play. Another piece of this also is the window of tolerance. So I'm trying to think where I want to start with this. The window of tolerance is basically our ability to handle hard things that happen to us. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it feels good, but that we have the ability to cope. And when we go outside of our window of tolerance, we can go outside of it by having a hyper arousal. And that hyper arousal is that activation. That is the fight. That is where you have that cortisol pumping and the adrenaline pumping and that hypervigilance. That's when we go into the fight or the flee. But we can also go into a hypoarousal. We can drop down into like a shutting down where all of our systems start to shut down. We go into a freeze and we don't feel like we can move. And the freeze can happen physically, emotionally, energetically. And what I actually see a lot of times with the window of tolerance is trauma will throw you outside of your window of tolerance or even like a trauma trigger. And when we have been in those really high emotions for a while, our system goes, uh-oh, this is too much. And it drops us then into the hypoarousal, where then it starts shutting everything down because it wants to protect our system. And it also can happen when we don't feel like we have any choices. So if we feel powerless, if we're not feeling like we can take that energy of the fight or flee, if we can't fight, we can't flee, then I see also this dropping into that hypoarousal and the shutting down, dropping into that freeze. So we have all of these things that are happening to our body with trauma. And so with that window of tolerance, maybe before the betrayal, your window of tolerance felt like it was pretty big. Let's say if your window of tolerance was 0 to 10, and I felt like that whole thing I could handle. And if it was an 11, maybe I went outside of my window of tolerance. But now when we've gone through the trauma, it shrinks our window of tolerance. So what maybe was a 0 to 10 now is like a 1 to a 4. And so I have this much smaller, more than half of what I had before I'm outside of my window of tolerance. So if something happens, let's say the dog poops on the floor, then where before that might have been like a 5 or a 6, and that would have been frustrating, but I still could handle it because it was in my window of tolerance of 0 to 10. Now, if my window of tolerance because of betrayal is only at a 4, and that's hitting me at a 5 or 6, all of a sudden I'm going into fight, flight, or freeze because I'm outside of that window of tolerance. And so what we really want to do is understand that, first of all, you're not choosing this. You're not choosing these responses. You're not choosing to go outside of your window of tolerance. It happens instinctively. And you're not choosing to just not be okay. You're not choosing to go into fight, flight, or freeze. That's what your body is doing to try to protect you because, again, it has activated this betrayal as a threat to your survival. It's shut down your prefrontal cortex and it's activated your amygdala. So what we want to do is really recognize that My body is having a trauma response and my window of tolerance has been significantly decreased. And I'll say this is really helpful information for your loved ones to understand if they are open to learning and understanding. Because a lot of times they are really confused. And whether it be your kids, your extended family, your spouse, they're confused on why mom or dad is acting this way. Why is all of a sudden they're so upset that I lost my backpack when normally they're not that upset? Or why are they having such big responses emotionally when that's not the way that it's always been? So, understanding some of the science behind what's happening with your brain and body with betrayal can be really beneficial. And I'll just say it, I hope for each of you that you have people that understand. More often than not, people don't. And I'll just say, like, I so deeply, badly wanted to be understood. And that was really hard for me. That even when people tried, they had a really difficult time. I remember back when I took the access training, and it's a 4-day training where they're training professionals. But I sat there and I went, this is so accurate and it's so validating. And there's a lot of good therapists out there, but when they don't have this training and they don't see and understand all of these pieces on how betrayal truly impacts your brain, your body, your emotions, how you view yourself, how you view the world, and what a huge impact it can have on all of these things. We're going to take a really fast break and tell you about some of the things coming up at Choose.
Hey, ladies, I want to tell you about something that could be the next step in your healing journey. It's my group coaching program, Believing in You. And it was created for women like you who've been through betrayal, abuse, or deep relationship pain and are ready to reconnect with yourself again. Believe in you again. Because when your world is shattered, it's not just the relationship that breaks, it's your belief in your own worth, your voice, your intuition, your future. And I get it. I live that. That's why I created a space where you don't have to figure it out alone. Each week, I coach you live, teaching tools, concepts, worksheets galore to help you really become more aware of what your old beliefs are and helping you shift into new beliefs. Teaching tools that actually support your nervous system healing and help you shift the beliefs that are keeping you stuck. You'll also get resources between sessions and be surrounded by a community of women who totally understand. It isn't about whether you're staying or leaving. It's about you choosing and learning to believe that you can trust yourself. You can heal, you can love, you can create something beautiful on the other side of this, no matter what the other person in the relationship does. You get a free 7-day trial. So come feel it out if you're ready to take your healing to the next level. If you've been doing this work and you're ready to take it deeper, or maybe you're just starting and you want a safe, supportive place to land, this is for you. Apply today and let's believe in you again.
Okay, and now back to the episode. Going even deeper into why betrayal can be so dysregulating, just kind of having that foundation of what your body is experiencing. I want to go into a little bit deeper on the attachment injury. So, we as humans are wired for connection. When the person that you trust most in this world becomes unsafe, your attachment system panics. When you're a baby, you need your attachment people for very survival. If you don't have them, you literally die. And so that attachment part in your brain is literally hooked to survival, and it believes that it's life or death. So even though logically you can go, yes, I know I'm not going to die if I don't have this, emotionally, that's not how your body responds. So when the person that you trust most becomes unsafe, it's like the very ground beneath you gets pulled away. And there is this ambiguous loss because while the person is still there physically, the safety that you had is gone. It's shattered. And I also see not only this ambiguous loss, but I see this ambiguous attachment where you have these two instinctive drives. One is I want to turn to this person because they've always been my comfort before. And the other is you were dangerous and I need to self protect and I need to run away from you. So there's this ambiguity, can't talk today, of both of those things and feeling that push and pull. If you've ever felt 1 minute, I want to hug you, and the next minute, I want to strangle you. That is so common. And that, as humans, can also make us feel really crazy and really disoriented. Also, another big piece of this emotional dysregulation is um, the identity loss. I was trying to think of a different word, but it truly it doesn't just break the trust, it breaks a sense of self. And not everybody experiences this, but I would say more often than not, I see people who have been betrayed questioning their worth, their sanity, their instincts, their intuition. They're questioning their sense of safety within their own body, their sense of safety in the world, their sense of safety in the relationship. And the human brain hates uncertainty. It tries to piece together a story that makes sense over what happened, which can lead to more obsessive thoughts. But a lot of times, especially with betrayal, there's been so much that has been lied and hidden that where your brain is desperately searching for answers, a lot of times I see people with partners who aren't giving the answers or aren't giving truth or aren't ready to give truth. So even that can create additional trauma on top of the trauma that they're either getting the trickle disclosure, a little bit of information over time, or they're not getting the information that they need. Which, as just a side note, this is why I feel really strongly with doing full disclosures, because when we get those pieces together, it helps us shape what actually is our reality. Because part of that identity shaking is losing our sense of what is reality and what is true. And everything I thought was true, now I realize has been shattered, and I have to create this whole reality. So that in and of itself can be such a painful and damaging part of betrayal. Another piece of this is your body can get stuck in overdrive. And I heard this analogy that I thought was so good. Trauma is if you have a gas car, and you put it in neutral, and then you put your foot down on the gas. And when you do that, the engines are revving up, right? So you get stuck in this revved up survival mode, but it has nowhere to go. So your heart rate can be spiking quickly, your stomach churning, sleep feels impossible, you're crying all the time. Your body is convinced there's danger, whether there's danger or not. You're in that revved up period. And so when your body is in that overdrive and you're almost constantly in that overdrive, even that causes more of that emotional dysregulation. And then the last piece, and by the way, I'm going to focus on one more last piece, but there's so many more than just what I'm focusing on today. But the last one that I'm going to focus on is the memory and the triggers. And I feel like each one of those can be separated, but memory, the hippocampus, it that's where your memories get stored, but it gets flooded with stress hormones. So when we have the stress hormones flooding that, and our brain is already in that hypervigilance, it can create this, it can create the betrayal and the images of the betrayal and the triggers, the smell, the song, phrase, the thoughts to be even more vivid and alive than maybe other emotions. And so with the memories, and our brain wants to remember painful memories so we never have to live through them again. And it wants to understand them, and it tries to create the stories. So when we have all of that, our brain can feel like it gets caught on repeat, that we can get in these repetitive thought cycles. And one thing that I recommend to my clients is, hey, if your partner is working on controlling their thoughts, that's something that I actually want you to start working on too. There's a difference between when I'm processing information to understand and when I'm just spinning in those vortex of thoughts and memories and sinking lower and lower down. And sometimes it takes a little bit to start to notice the difference. But when you notice you're in that spiraling type of thinking that's not going anywhere, it really is about building that muscle and learning how to step out of that. learning how to control those ruminating thoughts, learning how to say, yes, this is painful and it hurts. And I am going to choose to think about this right now instead. And that's not shutting it down. We're allowing for the emotion to be there. We're expressing what's coming up, but we also don't have to stay in the vortex of that spin. And then with triggers, I'll just say triggers are so dysregulating, because we almost never know when they're going to happen. That's why they're a trigger. They hit sometimes what feels like out of nowhere. You're driving down the road and you see something out of the corner of your eye. You see a tree that reminds you of something. You see a hotel, which leads to another thought, which leads to another thought. And so with those triggers, and it can be triggers of things that we love. We see our child smiling, and that smile reminds us of a time that there was joy. And then we realize that our spouse was cheating during that time, right? And you can see how quickly, and I'm sure you've experienced how quickly those triggers can just pull us down and emotionally dysregulate us. And so we do have some episodes specifically on what to do with triggers. So if you're hearing this and you're like, yes, Alana, but like what do I do with those triggers? Then go listen to one of those episodes. I'll talk about a little bit of the grounding today, but with the triggers, I want to give you so much love and empathy around the triggers because they are so painful and can feel so dysregulating. And one of the signs that you know you're healing is those triggers become not only less frequent, but the amount of time you're in them or the time it takes you to recalibrate gets less. So when you first go through betrayal, sometimes it can feel like I am having triggers all day long, just back to back. Or I have a trigger and I cannot get regulated for weeks. But then as you start to heal, it may be, I went a whole day without crying. I'm so proud of myself. And then maybe it's, I went 2 days without being triggered. Oh my gosh, I made it 2 days without being triggered. And then maybe it's, okay, I only made it 2 days. But when I got triggered, instead of spinning in it for the entire day, I was able to come back out of it by dinner. And so it's that healing happens slowly over time, but recognizing that being able to move through the triggers and how that can shift over time. Sometimes there's this idea and this message that sometimes other people give us, and sometimes we put pressure on ourselves. Like, why can't I just move on? Why can't I just put the past in the past? Why can't I move forward? Or heaven forbid somebody else is putting that on you. Can you just move on? Can we just put the past in the past? It's not that simple. I wish it was, but your whole system has been rewired by trauma. And so, unfortunately, we have to heal the whole system, and there is a rewiring that has to happen. There was a video I remember watching on YouTube years ago, and you could probably find it, but they took a bike and they made everything go backwards. And so, when you pedaled, if you turned to the right, your bike actually went to the left. And if you turned to the left, your bike went to the right. And they had people try to learn how to ride this bike, and they had the hardest time learning how to ride this bike because their brain was so hardwired. Those neural pathways were very strong with the very normal way of riding a bike. And then once they finally, lots of practice and falling over with the bike, they got it, then they were able to ride that bike smoothly. But then even when they had to switch back to the regular way, they could, there was a little clunky, but they could still do it fairly smoothly because those new neural pathways were there. And those old neural pathways, they were able to go back to those. So there's such a rewiring that has to happen. And unfortunately, trauma can, I don't know if it's good to say screw up all of the neural pathways, but it kind of is like an explosion that comes in and almost instantly can do a lot of destruction. So, what do I do with it? Hope and healing. The good news is your body and your brain are wired to heal. They are resilient and they are strong. And neuroplasticity means that your brain can rewire and find safety again. One of the things that's going to help that is creating an environment that is going to allow you to thrive best. What I like to say is I really like somewhere in your world, somewhere in your life, somewhere in your environment, whether it be in your car, in your closet, in your bathroom, a park, somewhere in your world that you can feel safe. Somewhere that for 5 minutes a day, 50 minutes a day, 5 hours a day, that your body can feel that safety and begin to re regulate. Doing grounding techniques. So, some of those could be putting your feet on the floor, earthing, going outside and letting your bare feet or your hands touch the earth, naming 5 things you can see, deep breathing exercises. If you Google grounding techniques, you will find thousands of options. And what I've learned is what works for some people doesn't work for others. So it's really about trying different grounding techniques and learning about what works for you. I also recommend after trauma is getting trauma therapy specifically. So whether it be brain spotting, ETT, EMDR, somatic experiencing, those type of things that can help process the trauma that has been stuck in the body to help keep moving it through. Definitely recommend that. Recommend learning how to feel the emotions and move them through you without drowning in them. I want to say we did an episode on that a couple months ago about feeling the feelings without drowning in them. Another thing is the attachment repair. So the attachment repair, when the attachment injury happens in attachment, best repair heals in attachment. Ideally, that is with your significant other, but that also comes with working with a safe therapist or a group that can help you learn to trust again. A lot of times it can't happen with your significant other because their nervous system is dysregulated as well. And so you need a safe, calm nervous system to be able to attach to and feel that safety with, which is why I really like having safe groups or finding your safe professional you can work with, because that can help heal the nervous system and the attachment. And then the last thing that I want to focus on is really having compassion for yourself. Compassion and self care. Those are so foundational to healing. Remembering that the dysregulation is a sign of your nervous system working as exactly as it's supposed to do, that it's working to protect you and it's a sign of strength, not weakness. And so, as you can shift that and as you can thank your body for protecting you and for healing and give yourself the compassion to heal in the time that you need to heal, that self compassion and then the self care to support it really can move your healing along and move your healing forward. So, if you have been betrayed and your feelings feel like they're too much, please, please, please hear me that you are not broken. Your brain and your body are responding exactly as they are supposed to, and they need time and love and compassion to heal. And they're responding exactly as they should to something that happened that was deeply unsafe. Emotional dysregulation isn't a flaw, it's a survival strategy. Emotional dysregulation after betrayal isn't a flaw, it's a survival strategy. So, with the right tools, the right support, the right pacing, you absolutely can heal. And actually, this is reminding me in October, if you have been betrayed in the last year, we have a betrayal trauma intensive called Courage to Thrive, which really is all about healing from the trauma and moving forward. How do we do this that I'm talking about? How do we regulate our bodies? How do we heal and move forward? How do we not let betrayal define us? How do we not let this ruin our lives? How do I put one foot in front of the other, find myself again, and not only survive this, but thrive again, or thrive for the first time? Check that out. If any of this resonates with you, I highly encourage you to come to our Courage to Thrive intensive in October. Until next time, take care of yourself, be gentle with yourself, and sending all the love and all the support As always, thank you for hanging out with us this week, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Hi, this is Hallie Roderick, and I want to personally invite you to join me and our team for the upcoming Courage to Thrive Intensive happening October 14th through the 17th in beautiful Spanish Fork, Utah. This 4-day experience is designed specifically for women who have experienced betrayal and are ready to take the next courageous steps on their healing journey. Whether you're just beginning to process the pain or you've been navigating this journey for years, this intensive will give you practical tools, supportive guidance, and somatic practices to help you reconnect with your body, set healthy boundaries, and reclaim control over your life. By the end of our time together, you'll leave with a renewed sense of hope, strength, and purpose, ready to step forward with courage and confidence, knowing betrayal no longer defines your life. If you feel called to take this next step, please check the show notes for all the details. I would love to welcome you to this upcoming transformative experience.